Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Broadcasting here from Elm Shade Estates in South Fallsburg, New York. And isn't it wonderful that we just started Zevachim and we're already starting the second parak? That's how it goes when you learn every day. That's the key. You learn every day, you finish Masechtas and Sdarim and Mirz Hashem. We're starting now the last third of Shas. So we're well on our way to finishing Shas Mishnayos. We are sponsored by the Fisher family. Leila Nishmas Basi Bas Rabbi Shalom Ben Avram Alevi Perel Bas Ruvain. We sponsored Leila Nishmas David Mechaim Lefur Shalem Fel Yomis Mechai Sorry Yaakov Ben Bas Yaleah for the schus of Avram and Yom Benish Ben Malk Yudis and family. We're sponsored by Yoel Krugman and family for their Parnasa Gzunta Nachas. We're sponsored by Lefur Shalema for Avigdor Aryeh Ben Rivka Hinda Bas Chayesara Chana Bas Shashabina Yitzchak ben Tziyam ben Dusha, Rivka bas Shiraleya, Meir ben Chayesara. They should have a refuah shalema b'seg shercha l'Yisrael. Now, let me give you a little Zevachim 101. In the procedure of doing a sacrifice in the Beis Hamikdash, there is what's called the Avodas Hadam, the blood services. The blood services consist of 4 steps: Shchita, Kabbalah, Hailacha, Zrika. Shechting the animal, catching the blood. Hailacha means bringing it to the Mizbeach, and then Zrika, sprinkling it on the Mizbeach. Shchita, even though it's the first of the Avodas Hadam, is kosher bizarre, is most of the time allowed to be done by a non-kohen. But Mikabbalah ve'elach, from Kabbalah and onward, it has to be done by a kohen. We will see that hailacha is not mandatory, because you can catch the blood right next to the mizbeach, and then you don't have to do hailacha. Zrika, it's interesting. When people think about a sacrifice, they think that the main step of the sacrifice is the slaughter, but it's not. The ikar avoda of a carbon is the zrika, is the application of the blood on the mizbeach. Remember, ki adam hu nefesh. The blood is the life of the animal. So now, remember we said that the carbon pesach and the chatas, the sin offering, is disqualified if done shaloi lishma. It's totally disqualified. It's possible. Now, pesach chatas sheshchoton shaloi lishman. If you did the shchita for the wrong designation, or kibel v'hilech v'zorak shaloi lishman, or if you did the catching of the blood, or the taking it nigh onto the mizbeach, or sprinkling for the wrong designation, it's possible. Or even if it was adulterated, oy lishman v'shaloi lishman. If you did the shchita having in mind first lishman, and then in the middle of the shchita you had in mind for a shlomin, or you did the wrong designation first, oy shaloi lishman v'lishman psulim. Now the Mishna just clarifies, Ketzad Lishman v'Shaloi Lishman. What's an example where you had in mind Lishma first and then Shaloi Lishma? Where you did it L'Shem Pesach, which is Lishma, and then in the middle of the Shechita you did it L'Shem Shlomim. Of course, Shlomim is a different carbon, that's Shaloi Lishma. And what would be Shaloi Lishman v'Lishman? L'Shem Shlomim first and then L'Shem Pesach. She'azevach nifsel ba'arba dvarim. Because the sacrifice is disqualified in any 4 of the avodas hadam, b'shchita with the shchita, kibel with the catching of the blood, hilach with the taking of the blood to the mizbeach, ubezrika and the sprinkling of the blood. Comes Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon argues. Reb Shimon says a kavana of a wrong designation in the halacha does not disqualify, since the halacha is not necessary. Rabbi Shimon machshir b'hilach, he says it's kosher even if you have in mind a wrong designation in the halacha. It's impossible to do without the shchita or the catching of the blood or the sprinkling of the blood. It's possible to do it without the halacha, because if sheichet b'tzad mizbeach v'zarek, you could shecht it right near the mizbeach and do the zrika, and therefore, since the halacha is not indispensable, you don't have to do it. A kavanah in it doesn't disqualify. Rabbi Lazar has a different way of looking at it. Rabbi Lazar Aimer Rabbi Lazar says, "Hamahalech b'mokim shu tzarech lahalech." If you're doing a halacha that's necessary, in other words, you can't caught the blood away off from the mizbeach, and you have to walk to the mizbeach. So if it's a walk that's necessary to do the zrika, then I'm achshava paiselis. But if you do a circuitous route, and you have the kavanah when you're going out of the way, if it's not a hilach that's necessary to do the zrika, you went out of your way, then ein machshava paiselis. In that hilach, since it's not needed for the zrika, a machshava would not disqualify. Now the second parak starts off to tell us that the following disqualify kol hazvachim shekibel daman zar. Any carbon that the blood is caught by a non-kayin or oinain or somebody who lost a close relative and the body wasn't buried yet. Tvil Yoim, a person who touched the sheretz, went to the mikveh but is waiting, Erev Shemesh, he's waiting the setting of the sun. So he's called a Tvil Yoim. Or Mechusar Begadim, he's a kayin, a regular kayin that's not wearing one of his 4 special begadim. Or Mechusar Kippurim, this is a person who, let's say a Zav, who has to count 7 days. He goes to the mikveh, but on the 8th day, until he brings his carbon, he's known as a Mechusar Kippurim. So if he didn't bring the carbon yet, so he's a Mechusar Kippurim, or Shaloi Richatz Yadayim Raglayim, he didn't wash his hands or his feet at the kier, Orel, or if he's uncircumcised, Tamei, if he's Tamei, Yoshev, if he's sitting, or Omer al Gabe Kalim. Remember, the floor in the Beis Hamikdash is a clay sharis. And they walked barefoot because there can't be any interposition between their feet and the floor. So Omer al Gabe Kalim, if he's standing on utensils, or al Gabe Behema, or an animal, or al Gabe Raglei Chavera, or his friend's foot. So his foot is not touching the floor, possible. In all these cases, the carbon is possible. Kibel Bismail, if he catches with his left hand, possible. Reb Shimon says that's kosher. Nishbach al Ritzpah, if the blood, he missed the blood, it spurted out of the animal and went on the floor. Va'asafai, and he gathered it from the floor, possible. It's possible. Nisanai al Gabi Kevesh, if he put it on the ramp, in other words, it's supposed to be put on the wall of the Mizbech, but he put the blood instead on the ramp leading up to the Mizbech. Or Shaloi Keneged HaYesod, around 2 sides of the Mizbech, and a little bit on the other 2 sides, ran a protruding Amma base. You have to put the blood on a wall that has on the bottom a base. If you did it Shaloi Keneged HaYesod, now there was a Chuta Sikra that bisected the height of the Mizbeach into half. Most karbanas the blood was applied below the Chuta Sikra. A Chatis is applied above the Chuta Sikra. So Nasan es anitonin lamata lamalon, if you put that which is supposed to be below the Chuta Sikra, above the Chuta Sikra, ves anitonin lamalon, or the Chatis which is supposed to be above the Chuta Sikra, that you put lamatan below, or as anitonim bifnim b'chutz, very few karbanos, the blood is applied inside the Kodesh. Carbon for Avodah Zarah, right? Or the karbanos on Yom Kippur. If you put esanitonim bifnim, blood that's supposed to be inside, b'chutz outside, v'esanitonim b'chutz, that in most karbanos that the blood has to be open on the mizbeach of chitzon, and you put it bifnim, pasul. However, if you eat that carbon, although the carbon is disqualified, but ein by karis, there's no karis for eating that carbon. Rabbi said, we really want to thank you for joining us. I want to remind you that there is for the Shabbos table Pinchas on Torah Anytime, on Kol Lashon, on YouTube. Also, the main share, Pinchas Gems 5785, is there as well. And in the beginning of the week this week, I gave a sweet share, which you can find. It's called Special Chizik for Tefillah. That's on TorahAnytime.com in the Tefillah section. That's a really sweet share to listen to. If you want to sponsor a share, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. By the way, if you want to just zell money to support the share, My Zell is that email, Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island at AOL.com, RMMWSI at AOL.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful Shabbos.